I was in the middle of making coffee when my phone vibrated. A video message had come through from Eleanor Hargrave, the woman who used to live next door when I was a kid. I hadn't heard her name in ages. Just seeing it on the screen pulled up memories I thought I'd left behind for good. The message itself was brief. No hello, no explanation. Just one sentence. I'm so sorry about your parents. I can't believe what I saw today. My chest tightened. I tapped the play button. The video opened on a church I recognized right away, Gracewood Chapel, the same place my parents always brought me for Christmas Eve services when I was a child. The camera moved in slowly, closing in on two people at the front. My parents. My mother, in a black lace dress, pearls at her neck, dabbing at her eyes like she'd practiced it. My father looked rigid, reading from a sheet of paper with trembling hands. Behind them was a coffin, and beside it, propped on an easel, was a large framed photo of me, surrounded by white lilies. I stood frozen. Then my father's voice came through. She was always a difficult soul, but we loved her deeply. We did all we could. My eyes went out of focus. He was reading a eulogy, for me. Though she left us far too soon, he said. We pray she's finally found peace. Number I was very much alive. Right there in my kitchen, heart racing, legs unsteady. This wasn't happening. I scrolled the video back and played it again, then again. Their expressions stayed fixed. No real grief, no cracks in their performance. Every word felt rehearsed. I clung to the counter just to steady myself. My fingers wouldn't stop shaking. What is this? I whispered. Why would they do something like this? I hadn't spoken to them in years, not since they cut me off entirely, made it clear I no longer existed to them. But now, to hold a memorial, to claim I was gone? The more I watched, the more the air around me seemed to freeze. In the video, my mother spoke about how heartbreaking my accident had been, but there hadn't been any accident. Then my father went on about how I spent my final years isolated and alone. In reality, I'd been working, pushing through each day, making ends meet. They knew that. They had to. So why this lie? Why stage something so final? I slowly lowered myself into the chair, the video still playing in my hand. It ended with the camera drifting over the congregation, extended family, old neighbors, even my childhood piano instructor, all dressed in mourning black, all convinced I was gone, dead. And not a single one had tried to call, message, or check on me. I watched the clip again to be sure I wasn't seeing things that weren't there. But no, the truth was right in front of me. They hadn't just pushed me aside, they'd gone further. They'd buried me while I was still breathing. And at that point, something clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't some bizarre mix-up. It was deliberate. Things hadn't always been like this. There was a time I genuinely believed family meant safety, loyalty. That illusion shattered 3 years ago, the day I was cast out of my own life like something broken, something disposable. It wasn't me who took the money. That was Nora, my younger sister, the favorite, the one they never questioned. She stole nearly $85,000 from the company account. She was careless, caught up in spending she couldn't afford, living way beyond her means. When the discrepancies showed up and everything started falling apart, our parents scrambled for someone to blame, and I was the easiest target. I still remember what my mother said to me that night in the kitchen, her voice low and cutting. Better to lose one daughter than both. And my father? He couldn't even meet my eyes when he agreed. You've shamed this family. You're no longer our daughter. That was the last thing my mother said to me. The next day I was gone. No farewell, no money, no explanation given to anyone. Just silence. I tried reaching out. Calls, messages, even handwritten letters. But every attempt disappeared into a void. My number had been blocked. When I contacted people we'd known for years, old family friends, they stopped replying altogether. Bit by bit, every familiar door closed on me. I became invisible. not just to my parents, but to everyone who had ever been part of my life. Eventually, like most people who've been shattered, I left. I packed a bag, flew overseas, and took a job at a small cafe in a quiet town. I changed my number. I kept to myself. I stopped using social media. I barely said my name aloud. Still, somewhere deep down, I clung to a small, stubborn hope that someone, anyone, would one day call. Ask how I was. Tell me there had been a misunderstanding. But that day never came. Instead, something worse did. Last year, I tried to recover my old email. It kept rejecting my login. When I contacted support, they told me the account had been closed due to a user-reported deceased status. My name had been flagged in their system as no longer living, confirmed, official, and final. My family hadn't just disowned me, they deleted me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The video played again and again in my mind. Their voices, their calm sorrow, my face in a frame next to a coffin. I had watched my own funeral from the outside, and something about it didn't sit right. So I started digging. The first person I called was my aunt, Helen, my mother's older sister. We hadn't spoken in ages, but I remembered how she used to sneak me peppermint chews during reunions. She picked up after 2 rings. "Aunt Helen, it's me. It's Layla." Silence. Then a click. She'd hung up. I tried calling again. This time I was blocked. Next, I messaged a few of my cousins. One replied with nothing more than a thumbs-up emoji and never followed up. Another texted, "Is this supposed to be funny?" No one believed it was really me. Except one, Eli, my youngest cousin, the one who used to trail behind me at family picnics when we were kids. He wrote back, hesitating, "Layla, are you actually alive?" "Yes," I typed back. "I need to know what they told everyone. What's the story?" The typing indicator blinked for what felt like forever. Then Eli finally replied, "They said you died in a car crash overseas 3 years ago." My chest tightened. They'd crafted an entire narrative, claimed it happened while I was traveling, that there wasn't time to bring the body back, that you'd been cremated, closed casket. I nearly dropped my phone, and there had never been a crash. I never even owned a vehicle while living abroad. Something cracked open in me. I went to the closet, yanked out my files, every official document I'd held onto. My passport, visa stamps, housing leases, even my old work contract. Not a single gap. No missing time, no incident. I'd never disappeared. I'd never even been in a hospital. Still, I needed proof. I logged into the National Public Records site and typed in my name. And there it was, Layla Warren, date of death June 28th, cause, motor vehicle accident, status, deceased, certificate ID, ORX-D 8-132774. They'd filed it, an official death record, falsified. I just sat there staring at the screen. This wasn't the result of shock. It wasn't denial or misunderstanding. It was calculated. Someone had gone out of their way to erase me from existence, to create a paper trail that said I no longer existed. This wasn't mourning, it was concealment. But what could they possibly be hiding that was worth pretending I was dead? Part of me wanted to walk away right then, but once you learn your own family buried you on purpose, you can't help but keep digging. And I found what I was looking for in a place I hadn't checked in years, Elena's social media. She'd made her account public again, and there it was, a glowing series of photos, white rose arrangements, champagne towers, a diamond ring that could blind someone. Elena's wedding, everyone was there, Aunt Helen beaming like she hadn't just hung up on me days earlier, my cousins laughing over champagne. Even Uncle Victor, who lived overseas and never attended anything, was present. But not me. Not a single word, not a photo, not even a casual wish Layla could have been here buried in a caption. I was gone, wiped clean like I'd never been part of their lives. Until I noticed something. One picture from the reception showed someone giving a toast. Her husband stood at her side smiling, and right next to him, my father, holding a wine glass, speaking into a mic, wearing a wide grin. The caption read, "To the one daughter who always made us proud." And there it was, the shift, not simply forgotten, replaced. That's when I got curious. I pulled up the registry for our family's business holdings. Just a few searches, a couple clicks, and my whole body went cold. The trust left to me by our grandparents, set aside for education, a first home, building a life, had been legally transferred to Elena, quietly, 6 months after my death. She hadn't grieved me. She'd gained from me. I stared at her glowing face in those wedding photos, white gown catching the sunlight, and the truth sank in. My sister hadn't just stepped into my place, she'd erased me to take it. That was it. If they wanted me gone, they were about to find out exactly how present I still was. The next morning, I walked into a law firm with a stack of paperwork and something burning in my chest. Passport stamps, job records, immigration logs, lease agreements, tax returns, boarding passes, evidence. Solid and undeniable. The young attorney on the other side of the desk looked at me like he wasn't sure if this was real. You're challenging your own death? I pushed the forged death certificate across the table. I'm not dead, and I'm done staying quiet. He stared for a beat, then gave a slow nod. All right, we'll begin with a fraud case, then file a motion to nullify the death declaration. It'll take time. I don't have time, I told him, and I meant every word. I had to interrupt, I told the lawyer, because apparently there's a memorial for me this weekend. He looked up from his notes, confused. I didn't blink. Earlier that morning, a message had come in from an unknown number. Just one sentence. They're holding a memorial for you next Sunday at Gracewood Chapel. No sender, no context, but I recognized the church. I knew the address. This wasn't a rumor, it was happening. And so was my plan. That night, I stood by my apartment window watching the city lights flicker like sparks, looking for something to ignite. They had wrapped me in lies, sealed me in silence, and wiped me from their lives as though I'd never been born. But now I had a stage. Let them cry. Let them whisper. Let them wear black and speak in hushed voices about a loss they had fabricated. When that curtain rose, they'd see the truth, and they would never forget it. Gracewood had never looked so crowded. Cars lined the street like a parade of sorrow. The tall wooden doors stood open just long enough for mourners to slip inside. Faces grim, eyes red, arms around each other like grief had personally knocked on their door. I stood across the street, wrapped in a long black coat, dark glasses shielding my eyes, still invisible, still watching. The whole scene felt like a staged drama, like I was looking in on a play starring someone who resembled me, sounded like me, but wasn't me at all. Inside, the act had already begun. The organ played a slow, mournful tune. Candles burned under a framed photo, my photo, the same one they'd used in the fake announcement. I remembered the day it was taken. In that photo, I'd been smiling, genuinely. Back then, before everything, when I still believed I belonged to that world. Now my father stood at the front of the church, hands folded around a piece of paper, his voice steady, just loud enough to fill the room. She struggled, but we loved her. She lost her path, and though we couldn't bring her back, we never stopped hoping. My mother sat in the first pew, lace-trimmed tissue pressed to her cheek in carefully timed sobs, like she'd been rehearsing them for weeks. And Elena, she stood next to the casket, pearls clutched in her hand, like they were the only thing keeping her upright. My sister Layla was difficult, she said, voice catching. But she was mine. I just wish I could have told her goodbye. A tear-wrapped lie tied in a velvet bow. I moved closer to the church doors, staying just within earshot. The priest lifted his hand. May she find peace, wherever she may be. I let out a slow breath. Not yet. The play was still in motion, but the lead hadn't made her entrance. And now, the priest said, voice solemn, let us stand for a moment of silence. Everyone rose together. Heads bowed, eyes closed, hands respectfully folded. That was my cue. I pushed open the doors. The sound was deliberate, two thick wooden doors creaking wide like a crypt cracking open. A shaft of cold daylight spilled into the sanctuary, cutting across the aisle in a perfect beam. And I stepped into it. One slow step at a time, my heels tapped against the marble floor. Click, click, click. Each step broke the silence like thunder. Gasps scattered through the room. A few people turned, then more. Murmurs erupted like sparks catching dry brush. Is that? It can't be. Then, cutting through the tension, a small voice called out, "Mom, isn't that her?" I removed my sunglasses. Eyes found mine, stunned, staring, disbelieving, terrified. My mother's skin turned ashen. Her lips twitched once. Then she collapsed. A dramatic fall, practiced and precise, like she had trained for it. Her body slumped to the floor. My father stood frozen, wine glass in hand. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. The glass slipped from his fingers and shattered at his feet. And Elena, she locked onto me, her face like glass about to crack. Her jaw tightened. Her hand twisted around her pearl necklace until her knuckles whitened. Then the champagne she'd been holding spilled from her grip, splashing across her spotless white shoes. The priest looked stunned, stepping back as I advanced. I kept walking, slow and steady. Every pair of eyes followed me, unsure whether they were witnessing something supernatural or something long overdue. Maybe I was both. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Just being there, breathing, present, was louder than anything I could have shouted. I was the answer they never expected, the consequence they thought they buried. By the time I reached the front, the entire room felt suspended in air, waiting to exhale. I turned slowly to face them and let a small smile rise. Time for the truth. I stood beneath the photograph they'd chosen to say goodbye to me, the same image used to mark my false ending. I looked out at the crowd, every gaze locked on me as if I'd stepped out of the grave. Good, let them see. I cleared my throat and spoke into the quiet. I heard I died. I'm here to set the record straight. A wave moved through the room. Still, no one spoke. Some people held phones, arms frozen mid-air, as if even blinking might break the moment. There was no car crash, no tragic accident abroad, no need for a sealed casket because no body was found. I was never missing. I pulled a folder from inside my coat, thick, official, marked with international stamps and government seals. These are my passport records, my job history, my tax forms, my leases, my travel logs. I've been alive, I've been working, I've been paying bills and filing forms and waking up every day. The only thing I lost was a family. Then I looked straight at my parents. They didn't lose a daughter. They erased her. They filed paperwork, signed documents, had me declared dead, legally. I turned to Elena, still rooted to the floor, her hand wrapped tight around her necklace like it was the only thing keeping her from shattering. And when I was officially gone, they handed everything to her, my trust fund, my savings, my future. Elena opened her mouth as if to protest. I raised a hand and cut her off. Hope you're enjoying the house you bought with my name on the deed. A low sound moved through the crowd, like thunder rumbling in a church. Somewhere behind me, someone whispered, "She's got documents." Another voice gasped, and then, finally, a phone rose into the air. The red recording light blinked on. Good, let them see this for what it truly was. Not a farewell, a fabrication. You didn't lose a daughter, I said, locking eyes with my father. You discarded her, and now you get to watch her walk back in. The lies, they were dust now, and I had just struck the match. I turned once more before leaving. My father's face had gone ghostly pale. My mother sat trembling, hands folded tightly in her lap. Elena? Hollow. No more pearls. Nothing left to clutch. You buried me to save yourselves, I said, calm and clear. But I came back to remind you truth doesn't stay buried. No yelling, no chaos, just silence, complete, weighty. And then I turned and walked away. As I stepped outside, the church bells began to toll. How fitting. A funeral bell, but not for me. I slid the final folder across my lawyer's desk, signing the last page as he nodded. The false death certificate, torn clean in half. I was legally alive again, and not just alive, vindicated. A formal investigation had begun. Fraudulent documentation, false declarations, financial misconduct. Let them spin more stories now. Sometimes you have to let them bury you in their world, to be reborn in your own. And this time I wasn't coming back for apologies. I was coming back for freedom.